Welcome to Mentora IAS. I am Safir and let me welcome you to the current SAAR program. This particular program is a 16-month long current affairs coverage program for you, especially curated for UPSC Prelims examination 2026 so that you no longer fear current affairs. Okay, so right now we are covering the current affairs from the month of January on the topic international relations. We have already come up with the first video that was on the International Criminal Code. You can watch that particular video as well, and today we are going to cover the second topic with respect to this particular topic, international relations. Now the objective here is to give you pure curated information from which you can expect a question in the preliminary examination. We do not want to overload you with any other kind of information. Okay, we are that serious about getting you through with the prelims, and we would want the same kind of seriousness from you as well. So that is why please keep on you can say watching our videos, sharing and subscribing to our channels and our social media presence at all these social media platforms: Instagram, YouTube, Telegram and Facebook, of which I would definitely want you all to be a part of the Mentora IAS Telegram group, because here we share all the detailed handouts related to every single current affairs video that you find on this particular channel. Okay, now these particular handouts are the ones which are going to act as your notes. You need not do any more research as long as you do not find anything which is not understood by you in those notes. Okay, they have been made in a very detailed, precise and you can say simple manner in order for you to understand, so that you do not have to waste your time to make more notes. Okay, the best way is to watch our videos and then refer to our handouts, then subsequently you build up on your knowledge and practice these questions, and we believe that this is something which is more than enough for you to write not just your prelims examination, but this is also going to significantly enhance your background for the mains examination. Okay, so with that commitment, let us now begin with the topic at hand, that is Indus Water Treaty. So when we talk about the Indus Water Treaty, now this particular treaty has seen two major events that have happened, one in January 2025 and one after the Pahalgam attack of 2025. Okay, so we are going to first of all cover this with respect to what happened in January 2025, and then we will look into the aftermath of the Pahalgam attack. So in January 2025, the neutral expert who has been appointed by the World Bank. Okay, so neutral expert is appointed by the World Bank and his name is Michael Leno. Okay, he basically gave a decision that his authority or his office was competent of resolving all the 7 points of differences that have been raised by India with regards to the Chenab River Basin hydropower project. So this particular problem basically relates to the objections that have been raised with respect to the Ratle hydropower project. Okay, this is basically a power project which has been built or which is being built over Chenab and which was objected to by Pakistan. Okay, so this basically is an 850 megawatt project. Now the point being that in 2016 Pakistan basically requested the World Bank to initiate the proceedings of the Court of Arbitration. Okay, this is another way of dispute resolution between India and Pakistan in case any such dispute arise in the treaty. So the Indus Water Treaty basically provides for a 3-tier mechanism for dispute resolution. The first one is the Permanent Indus Commission. When it is unable to resolve that particular dispute, then these two mechanisms, neutral expert and Court of Arbitration. Now this is something which basically are instituted based upon the request of each of the countries. Now with respect to India, India says that the second tier, okay, of the dispute resolution is basically neutral expert, and the current problem, the current objection of Pakistan is basically based upon differences of opinion. So there is no kind of dispute, it is a difference, and that is why this is something for which the neutral expert is the one who is the right authority. Okay, so Pakistan basically wanted to initiate the Court of Arbitration proceedings, and subsequently the World Bank initiated both of them. Okay, so the World Bank appointed the neutral expert and at the same time it also handed over the case to the Court of Arbitration. Now the neutral expert is basically the individual who has first of all declared the intent that he has the full authority to resolve all the 7 points of differences related to the case, and he will basically be giving this particular verdict. Okay, so this particular neutral expert's verdict is going to be binding upon both India and Pakistan, meaning that they will have to adhere to the decision. Okay, so it is expected that by the end of 2026, it is basically the neutral expert who is going to come up with the you can say the explanation and the verdict of this entire problem. Okay, now this is what happened in January 2025. After this, what also happened was that in you can say April 2025, we see a very dastardly kind of attack that basically was initiated by the militants in the Pahalgam region of Jammu and Kashmir, and subsequently this was a selective killing of the tourists who basically were there, and subsequently in the aftermath of this entire incident, we basically kept the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. Okay, so the Indus Water Treaty as of now has been kept in abeyance. That basically means it is temporarily suspended. That is what we need to understand. Okay, but we are also going to understand, is it something that can be revoked unilaterally or not? Okay, that is something that we are going to see. So let us begin with the very basics. What exactly is this treaty all about? So this treaty, Indus Water Treaty, is basically a tripartite agreement. Basically here three you can say different parties are involved. Okay, so here we basically have got India, okay, we have got Pakistan, and then subsequently we have got World Bank. Okay, World Bank at that particular time was the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD. Okay, so International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. If you did not know this as the name of the World Bank, please do remember this. This is basically the name that was given to the bank because it was having the primary objective of helping all the war-torn nations of Europe after World War II to rebuild themselves. Okay, so that is why it is known as the IBRD. Now this is basically a treaty which was brokered by the World Bank. Okay, now the point being that in this particular treaty, it is the World Bank who acts as the guarantor. Okay, as of now, it is basically the World Bank who has the duty of you can say handling only the second and third tier mechanism of the dispute resolution. All the other things with respect to the implementation and all the other aspects are the one which are to be handled by the respective governments of these two countries. Okay, so this particular agreement was signed in 1960. The date was 19 September 1960. On behalf of India, we had Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, he basically was the Prime Minister of India, and he basically was the signatory here, and from Pakistan it was the President of Pakistan at that particular time who signed it. Okay, so this particular treaty is about the division of the waters of the Indus river system, okay, between India and Pakistan. So when we talk about Indus, now Indus is a transnational river. Okay, it originates from Tibet, it flows through India, and then it finally enters into Pakistan where it meets the Arabian Sea. Okay, now with respect to Indus, there are some really important tributaries of Indus that flow through India or that originate in India. Okay, so in that particular manner, what happens is that before 1947, because at that particular time India was not partitioned, so there was no concept of having a transnational river. The only upper riparian state was China at that particular time. Okay, now with the partition effected in 1947, now what has happened is that this particular river water system has been divided in three different countries. Okay, one is China, where the Indus barely starts. Then basically we come towards India, which has got significantly large territories, and the largest you can say tributary of Indus, that is Chenab, is basically the one which is found in India. Then subsequently we see that the Indus actually makes its way to the Arabian Sea via Pakistan. Okay, so that is why after the partition, it was one of the suspicions of Pakistan that India might be you can say strong arming Pakistan by manipulating, or you can say regulating the use of the waters of the Indus water system. And that is why this was basically there was a sense of discord that this is what you can say India was going to use as a leverage against Pakistan in order to alleviate this particular you can say dispute. Okay, the World Bank basically worked between 1951 to 1960 in order to bring the two governments on the same table, and this particular treaty was signed on the basis of you can say good faith and at the same time friendliness. Okay, so that was basically the objective, that the most optimized use of the waters of Indus river system shall be achieved by the Indus Water Treaty. So that is why this particular treaty is focusing on 6 rivers, okay, which actually flow from India and then to Pakistan, and how the waters of these 6 rivers are going to be utilized. Okay, and that is why when you talk about Indus Water Treaty, because of its sustained you can say cooperation between the two sides, because it is something that has seen 3 wars, okay, and at the same time even then the cooperation was the one which was you can say taken up. So this is something which has been one of the shining examples of bilateral cooperation regardless of the you can say the situations at border or the military confrontation. But after the Pahalgam attack of 2025, this particular treaty has been temporarily suspended from the side of India, and India basically demands resolute action from Pakistan in order to curb the terrorist activities that are being plotted against India on its soil. Okay, so that is basically the entire backdrop of the Indus Water Treaty. Okay, so when we talk about the Indus Water Treaty, there are certain definitions which have been given in the Indus Water Treaty, and according to such definitions there have been certain uses that have been defined. Okay, so the first definition that has been given in this particular treaty is based upon the addressing of the 6 rivers which are on which this particular treaty has been based upon. So they have been demarcated as eastern rivers and western rivers. Okay, so eastern rivers are basically Satluj, Beas and Ravi, and western rivers are basically Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. Okay, so if we focus on this particular map which actually covers the you can say the movement of Indus and its tributaries, so we see that we have Satluj, this is Satluj, okay, this is Satluj. Then we have Beas, so this is Beas, I'll use a different color for Beas. Okay, so they basically meet together here at Harike in Punjab. Okay, then subsequently we have Ravi, so this is Ravi. Okay, this is Ravi. Then subsequently we have Chenab. Okay, so this is Chenab. And subsequently we have Jhelum. Okay, so what color to use for Jhelum? Okay, so this is Jhelum. Okay, so now what happens is that when we see all of these rivers, we see that there are certain rivers whose waters have been used for the irrigation purposes of the Punjab plains which are currently in India, and there are certain rivers whose waters have been used for the irrigation of the Punjab plains in Pakistan. So the problem is basically that when you talk about the concept of plains of Punjab, so this is what is actually called the plains of Punjab. Okay, these are the plains of Punjab. So when you talk about the plains of Punjab, after the partition, what has happened, that a major chunk of the plains of Punjab was actually given to the side of Pakistan. So subsequently the West Punjab, okay, so the West Punjab is something which is found in Pakistan, while the East Punjab is basically what we know as the state of Punjab in India. So in the same manner, the plains which were actually irrigated by the Eastern Punjab or the eastern plains of Punjab which were being irrigated by the rivers, that is actually Satluj, Beas and then Ravi. Okay, they are basically the ones which have been given to India for unrestricted use. They are called eastern rivers. And when you talk about Jhelum, Chenab and Indus, now they are the ones who basically irrigate the western plain of Punjab, and that is why they have been given the nomenclature of western rivers. Okay, now this is basically the first thing that we need to understand very properly with respect to this entire thing. Okay, we'll be coming back to the course of Indus towards the end, don't worry about it, but as of now this is what we need to understand. Okay, So what exactly are the eastern and western rivers? They have already been defined with respect to the you can say this particular treaty. Okay. Now what exactly has been the provision? So India and Pakistan have been given unrestricted access to these rivers based upon certain conditions. So India basically has unrestricted access to eastern rivers, that is Satluj, Beas and Ravi, while Pakistan has unrestricted use of waters of Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. Okay. So based upon the waters which are flowing in the river Indus, it is seen that about 80% of the total water of Indus, okay, that is something which has been allocated of the Indus river system has been allocated to Pakistan, while 20% of that is allocated to India. Okay. Now the point is that there is certain exception that has been made, that because these rivers which are the western rivers subsequently, they are also a part of the Indian territory. We basically have Jhelum, on the banks of which we have the city of Srinagar. Okay, so that is why when you talk about Jhelum, when you talk about Chenab, which is the largest tributary of Indus, but this is something which has its source in India from Chandra and Bhaga, you can say the headwaters. So what has happened is that these rivers have been given the exception that there are certain limited uses that India can do with respect to these rivers. Okay, so first of all, let us understand what exactly have been the uses. Okay, the first use that has been given is with respect to agricultural use. Okay, so when you talk about agricultural use, this is predominantly talking about irrigation of farms. Okay, irrigation of farms is basically the concept here. That is what is covered under the definition of agricultural use. The second thing is basically when we talk about domestic use. Okay, so when we talk about domestic use, so domestic use basically talks about the civil supply of water. Okay, civil supply of water for the people. Okay, that's the thing. And the next one that is basically there is the you can say the watering of gardens in private property and public spaces. So all the public gardens and all the plantations that are there, they are basically the one that can be covered under domestic use, apart from civil supply, that is bathing, cleaning and other such things. Okay, so private property and public spaces. Okay, now the third one that is basically there is non-consumptive use. Okay, non-consumptive use. So what exactly does non-consumptive use mean? So when you talk about non-consumptive use, it basically means that use of water which does not reduce the flow or availability of water. The availability or flow of water to the receiving party. That is basically called as non-consumptive use, literal definition. Okay. Now what exactly does this mean? That this could be used for navigation purpose. This could be used for flood control. It could also be used for floating timber. Okay, that you basically want to cut down timber logs and then you want to transport timber much the same manner as we see in the movie Pushpa. So in that particular manner you could use this particular stream to let the timber reach from one position to the other as a means of transport. Now these are the things which are allowed under the non-consumptive use. Okay. Then apart from this, there is diversion of water for mining, that basically comes under the domestic and commercial use. So this is basically what exactly are the definitions that have been given under the Indus Water Treaty. Now with respect to the Indus Water Treaty, just as I told you that there are western rivers, okay, which although have been allocated to Pakistan. When you talk about Jhelum and Chenab, both of them have their origin in India. So because they have their origin in India, it cannot be the case that they cannot be used by India. So that is why India can use this for domestic and agricultural needs, but there are certain limitations. Okay, just like with respect to the irrigation needs, only about 701 million hectares. Okay, sorry, 701,000 hectares of land can be irrigated. That can be irrigated. Subsequently, a very small capacity reservoir could be built, okay, on the rivers. So this small capacity is basically 0.25 million acre feet. Okay, that is basically the kind of you can say volume of water that has been allowed. That if you have a water capacity of this particular volume, you can build this without giving any kind of you can say notification to Pakistan. But apart from that, if you want to build any kind of hydroelectric power project, run of the river hydroelectric power project, you will have to inform Pakistan about your design. And this is where the arbitrariness comes in the perspective of India. Okay, so I hope this is something which becomes clear and these definitions have become clear. Now let us talk about the Permanent Indus Commission. So Permanent Indus Commission basically is a body which will have commissioners from both the sides of the you can say party. One commissioner from India, one commissioner from Pakistan. They are experienced hydrologists, okay, engineers, who basically are going to discuss and ensure smooth implementation and amicable resolution of any kind of sticking points. Okay, that is the objective of this particular Permanent Indus Commission, and they have to meet at least once in a year. Now this was something which was diligently followed before COVID-19 lockdown. That was the only time that the Permanent Indus Commission meeting could not be you can say organized, but beyond that, before 2025, they were meeting at least once. Okay, and the first objective that they have is basically jointly monitor the implementation of treaty on each other's side. So they basically are also allowed to visit the sites on each other's territory to ensure that the you can say implementation has been honest on both the sides. Then at the same time, they are going to exchange the data related to the river, related to the hydrological and meteorological conditions, and subsequently any kind of differences with respect to changing the way the water needs to be used. For that matter, if India or Pakistan, they want to divert more amount of water, so what needs to be done is that they are the first step to solve such initial disputes through discussion. Okay, so this is basically the first tier of the dispute resolution mechanism, the Permanent Indus Commission, given by Article 9 of the Indus Water Treaty. Then subsequently the second one, if this is something which cannot be resolved, then comes the part where we are going to go to the neutral expert. Now this particular neutral expert is going to be an eminent engineer who would be appointed by the World Bank, and this particular individual is expected to resolve any differences that the countries have been experiencing with respect to the treaty and its clauses. Okay, so this particular individual is the one who is going to take the representations from both the sides and answer any such questions which are going to give this particular difference. Okay, then subsequently the last one is basically the tier 3, which is the Court of Arbitration, a 7-member ad hoc tribunal which is again going to be set up by the World Bank. Now the point is that here we are going to get 2 arbitrators each. Okay, from India as well as Pakistan. They are going to nominate 2 arbitrators from their side, and then subsequently there will be a neutral umpire and there will be an access to the World Bank. Okay, so in this manner what is going to happen, they are going to resolve the disputes. They are going to resolve the disputes. This individual is going to answer questions on differences, and before them it is the Permanent Indus Commission that is going to do this job. Okay, now the decisions given by the neutral expert, the Court of Arbitration, both of them, whatever decision they are going to give, that is going to be binding on both the countries. That means it has to be implemented. You cannot be challenging it. Okay, there is no other resort to it. Now the point is, there is no such hierarchy that has been explicitly mentioned that such kind of questions need to be escalated, such kind of things need to be initiated with respect to court of arbitration. There is no hierarchy. So that is why what happened was that there was a parallel demand for both of them to the World Bank made by India and Pakistan respectively, and this was predominantly on two projects, Kishan Ganga. Now Kishan Ganga is basically a tributary of Jhelum. Okay, so Kishan Ganga hydropower project, that was the first one. Okay, now this was something which was actually decided by the court of arbitration in favor of India. Okay, so this was also the one which was taken by Pakistan to the court of arbitration, and that legally settled this dispute in the favor of India. Now the second one was Ratle. Now Ratle is something on which India basically said that the first person or the first authority is the neutral expert who should be appointed, and they should be evaluating the case, and Pakistan initiated court of arbitration tribunal proceedings. So both the proceedings were jointly you can say initiated, and as of now the neutral expert has given this particular opinion that he is alone you can say qualified enough to get the resolution done. Okay, so now what happens is going to be dependent upon the you can say the verdict that will be given by the neutral expert in 2026. Okay, now when you talk about the World Bank, so World Bank in the initial days when this particular treaty was to be signed, that at that particular time it was the major negotiator on both the sides. Okay, then it acts as the guarantor as of now, and currently it basically only has got appointment you can say powers with respect to the neutral expert, and then subsequently the court of arbitration whenever the parties are going to need it. Okay, so that is the current role of World Bank. It does not in any way come in middle of the negotiations between India and Pakistan. It on the other end wants to give a neutral ground to both the countries to come together and jointly in an amicable manner resolve the disputes. Okay, that is basically the thing. Now when we talk about you can say the historical context of the Indus Water Treaty, so we have discussed this, that after the 1947 partition, it was basically apprehension on the side of Pakistan that India might try to twist the arms of Pakistan by regulating the flow of water in the Indus river system. And subsequently what happened was that in 1948 Pakistan closed certain canals that actually created you can say irrigation crisis on the eastern plains of Punjab, that was basically in the state of Punjab. Subsequently, because of this, now India and Pakistan were already on the verge of war with respect to Kashmir. They had already fought once in 1947. Okay, and the situation was already volatile. So at that particular time, you can say a mediation between the two countries was executed by Eugene Black. Okay, Eugene Black was the individual who was the president of the World Bank when this particular treaty was signed. But much before that particular precedent, in 1951 itself, this particular negotiations started. Okay, and subsequently, as of now, I mean the treaty, because it officially stands, so that is why it is basically the role model of bilateral cooperation between the two countries. Okay, now when we talk about the you can say the use that is allowed for India and what is not allowed, this is something which has been given as an annexure, okay, to this particular treaty. So annexure is basically what are the add-on things, okay, which are not required in the treaty or the main treaty. What are the add-on things or terms and conditions that are here? So first of all, on the western river, the western rivers, India has been allowed domestic, agriculture and non-consumptive uses. With respect to agriculture uses, you basically cannot divert a significant amount of water. There is a limitation, that is 701,000 hectares of land which can be irrigated using the waters of these rivers. Okay, domestic and non-consumptive uses are allowed, but not till the extent that it is going to disturb the ecological flow of the river that is supposed to be given to Pakistan. Okay, then when you talk about the storage facility, so dams can be built up, but the built up can only be at most 0.25 million acre feet of volume. This is the only and the largest amount of volume of water that can be stored by India over these particular rivers, and subsequently this imposes a significant design restriction. So this is something which is going to also have an implication over the hydropower project that needs to be built up. So that is why this is something which becomes a sticking point. Then the next one is that without Pakistan's express approval, we cannot be building hydropower projects on these rivers, and this is where Pakistan actually starts you can say intervening with respect to India's sovereignty, and this is where it has actually challenged the Kishan Ganga and Ratle projects. So this is basically how we see that these cases have been challenged. While with respect to Kishan Ganga, it has been resolved with arbitration. With respect to Ratle, right now the neutral expert is basically the one who's going to give that particular verdict. Okay. Now the key achievements are basically that this particular treaty has been in place for, you can say, 65 plus years, and at the same time it has survived 3 different wars. Okay, 1965, then 71, then 1999, 3 wars. Then at the same time, Permanent Indus Commission has worked efficiently, and at the same time it has been one of those rare moments of camaraderie with respect to the two sides. Subsequently, World Bank here, because of its guarantor approach, it basically is the one which is going to ensure that there will be a neutral, you can say, neutral arbitration of the entire dispute. And the most important part is that there is no exit clause in this particular, you can say, treaty. This particular treaty is perpetual. So that is why we have said that we are keeping it in abeyance, that is temporary suspension. We have not cancelled this treaty. So please get this doubt cleared of yourself. There is no exit clause that has been expressly given in this particular treaty. Okay, so this treaty is perpetual between India and Pakistan. It has definitely been kept in abeyance, but literally it means temporary suspension. It is not permanent suspension. Now the next thing is that even if we wanted to suspend it permanently, we would have to build up the infrastructure. Okay, so that is something which is a work in progress definitely, but the treaty does not provide any particular party to unilaterally come out of this. But there is another limitation to it. If there is any kind of amendments that are needed to be brought with respect to the Indus Water Treaty, it will require mutual consent of both the parties to amend the clauses. Okay, and based upon this, India actually requested Pakistan in 2022 that based upon the changing climate and glaciological conditions, we need to rethink some of the provisions with respect to the Indus water, because the water of Indus is something which is rising because of the melting glaciers, and that is why we can actually use some amount of this water without disturbing the natural flow. But this is something which Pakistan has kept on stalling, and that is how we see that Indus Water Treaty has its own drawbacks. Okay, so climate change and reduced glacier melt, which is going to first of all increase the water flow in the short term, and then subsequently it is going to shrink this entire river. That is something which has been a very difficult situation with respect to India and for that matter Pakistan. Then India gets only 20% of the total water of the system. Now that is a significant you can say reduction and limitation on India, despite the fact that all these rivers apart from Indus have their major courses through India. Okay, then India cannot actually develop things on the western rivers without express permissions from Pakistan. That is something which has delayed the socio-economic development in these regions. And then the difficulty to amend that I just told you, this is something which requires mutual consent that cannot be done unilaterally or by involving the World Bank. Okay, so if you have to amend you can say Indus Water Treaty, you will need mutual consent. You cannot unilaterally end this particular treaty, and at the same time it has a very small scope for amendment as well. Okay, so this is basically what is the situation. Now let us talk about the question with respect to Indus Water Treaty. Consider the following statements about the Indus Water Treaty. It provides for the sharing of water of the Indus and its tributaries between India and Pakistan. India has unrestricted usage for Ravi, Chenab and Jhelum. The treaty was brokered by the World Bank. Okay, so how many of the above statements is or are correct? So Indus Water Treaty, the first statement given here is basically it provides for the sharing of the water of Indus and its tributaries between India and Pakistan. This is correct. That is how it is. The second one is India has unrestricted usage rights for Ravi, Chenab and Satluj. Wrong, it is not Chenab. Chenab has been assigned to Pakistan. Okay, treaty was brokered by World Bank. This is correct. So the correct answer here would be only 2 of the statements are correct. Okay, now consider the following pairs, that is hydropower project and river that has been given. Now this is something which is a pure geography question which you can expect with respect to this particular treaty in the examination. Okay, so you are given certain dams and you are given the rivers on which these dams are. Okay, so let us try this particular question. Salal, Jhelum, Baglihar, Chenab and Ratle, Kishan Ganga. Okay, so how many of the above pairs are correct? So I have just told you Ratle is on Chenab, so this is wrong. Okay, now when you talk about Baglihar and Salal, okay, let us look at it with respect to this particular map. Okay, where exactly is Baglihar and Salal? Both of these are on Chenab. Okay, this is Salal, this is Baglihar. Okay, both of them are on Chenab. When you talk about Kishan Ganga is basically one of the tributaries of Jhelum. So there we have the Kishan Ganga project. Okay, so Salal is not on Jhelum, it is on Chenab. Baglihar is on Chenab. So the correct answer here would be only 1. Okay, so that's the question here. So this is basically how you see the dams. Now this is something which can definitely be asked with respect to Indus. This can be asked definitely. Okay, now this was UPSC 2021's question which actually came, and this was a question which to some extent has confusing language, but at the same time it was a very interesting question. With reference to Indus river system, of the following 4 rivers, 3 of them pour into one of them which joins the Indus direct. Okay, among the following, which one is such a river that joins the Indus direct? So it basically talks about these 4 tributaries of Indus. Okay, Chenab, Jhelum, Ravi and Satluj. Okay, so out of this we have to tell which of the tributary joins the Indus directly. All the other 3 are basically the one which are going to first of all merge together, and then they are going to join into Indus as one river. Okay, but out of these 4 there is only one river that can actually go into Indus directly. So when we talk about the you can say the entire course of Indus with respect to you can say India and Pakistan. So Indus is something is a river that actually originates in the Kailash range in Tibet. Okay, it originates in Tibet. Okay, then it comes to India and then it goes to Pakistan. Okay, this is what we know. Now with respect to India, in India it has a very small course. Okay, and in India it receives some of its tributaries. Okay, then subsequently when it goes to Pakistan, there it receives all of these major tributaries. Okay, so we basically need to keep the entire course of the river in our mind. Okay, so let us understand the first of all overall course of the river Indus. So when you talk about Indus, so Indus basically starts from the Rakastal lake. Okay, it starts from the Rakastal lake in Kailash ranges. Okay, so this black one if you are seeing, this is basically Indus. So it starts from Tibet. Okay, it enters into India via Dame Chok, and subsequently what happens is that it flows in a northwesterly direction. While it is flowing in the northwesterly direction, it receives the waters of the river Zaskar, it receives the water of the river Shyok and Nubra. Okay, then as you move up, it receives the water of Dras and Shigar, and it goes towards Gilgit-Baltistan province, where it receives the water of the river Gilgit and Hunza. Okay, and after that it takes a U-turn from the Nanga Parvat, and from there it enters into the plains in Pakistan at Attock. Okay, so from there it moves in the southwesterly fashion all the way into the Arabian Sea. So while it is in Pakistan, it receives a lot of rivers on both the sides. Okay, from the eastern side, that is from the Indian side, it basically receives the waters of Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas and Satluj. Okay, so out of these when you talk about Jhelum, so Jhelum basically is the one which actually flows from India, forms a part of the boundary between India-Pakistan border and then enters into Pakistan. Okay, then we have Chenab, which is the largest tributary of you can say Indus. Okay, so Chenab basically has its origin in Himachal Pradesh, where the Chandra and Bhaga headwaters are basically the ones which come together and they give rise to Chenab. And then the third most important river with Indus is Satluj. Satluj in itself is one such river which flows for a distance of about 400 kilometers parallel to Indus in Tibet and then enters into India via Shipkila. Okay, so from the Shipkila pass it actually enters into India, then subsequently it drains through India through the states of Himachal Pradesh and Punjab, and then it goes from India towards Pakistan. Okay, and in between Chenab and Jhelum are two important tributaries of Indus. One is Beas, which joins Indus within India at Harike. Okay, and the other one is Ravi, which joins Chenab in Panjnad. Okay, so what happens is that once all of these rivers are going into Pakistan, there is complete sovereignty of Pakistan over their waters. Okay, but as long as they are in India, India has the you can say unrestricted right of usage of them. Now, when you talk about the confluence of Chenab and Jhelum, this happens at Trimu, okay, which is in the Jhang province. Then subsequently, then you receive the water of Ravi, and then subsequently from here what happens is that this is something which is known as the Panjnad or Panjnad, whatever you would want to call it. Okay. After that, they all come together and they join with Satluj just near Mithankot. Okay. So from here what happens is that here we basically see after that it is only Satluj which actually gets into Indus directly. All the other rivers either merge into Satluj or they merge into Chenab. So Jhelum, Chenab and Ravi, they meet together and they form Chenab, and then Satluj with the confluence of Beas, it moves into Indus, and this is the only river to join Indus directly. Okay, so that is basically how you see that Satluj is that particular river which joins Indus directly. Okay, so that is how this particular question could have been solved in the examination. Okay, so with this we come to an end to this particular discussion. I hope you had found it interesting and at the same time you could understand what exactly are the nuances that you need to know. See, there are pretty much more details about it. There is a complete legal perspective. There are endless debates about it, but the point is you need not get into those because they are not going to help you in prelims anyway. Okay, so it is much better that we focus upon what can be asked in the prelims. So these are the things that can be asked in the prelims, that you might be needing the names of the dams, further the course of the river, and how exactly the tributaries are joining at what locations. That's it, not more than that. Okay, so the major features have been covered, and that with that the course of the river has been discussed briefly. So hoping that you could understand this, revise this once from the notes, and subsequently you will be done with this particular topic. Indus River is important with respect to prelims 2026 because of the events that have happened in 2025. Okay, so see you later in the next topic, and subsequently till then keep on revising, keep on sharing and keep on liking our videos. Okay, so take care, all the very best.